Hi, I welcome you all in YuktMind's unique initiative 10 Minutes and Newspaper Done. In this video, we'll be covering June 3rd's The Hindu newspaper. You can download the PDF of these news from our website www.yuktmind.com under Current Affairs tab. You can also download the PDF from our Telegram channel, the link of which is given in the description below. Let's get going. So in this video, we'll be covering 5 news starting with Odisha train accident, dead fish in Dal Lake, guidelines on deemed universities, carbon problem, and finally on cyber safety. So, the first news, at least 70 passengers were feared dead and more than 350 injured in a major rail accident involving two express trains and a goods train in Balasore district of Odisha on Friday evening. So, the second news is regarding dead fish found in Dal Lake. Last week, thousands of dead fish were found floating on Dal Lake and a stench engulfed large parts of the famous tourist attraction in Srinagar. Following a probe, the Jammu and Kashmir government attributed the incident to thermal stratification. Thermal stratification is basically a change in the temperature at different depths in the lake. However, an in depth study by ICAR's Central Institute of Fisheries Education Mumbai in December 2022 had forewarned that a widespread pollution was making the lake's ecosystem unviable for fish production. Let us look at thermal stratification in depth. It refers to a change in temperature at different depths in the lake, and it is due to the density of water varying with temperature. Typically, stratified lakes show three distinct layers. The first is epilimnion, comprising the top warm layer. The second is thermocline or metalimnion, that is the middle layer, which may change depth throughout the day. And the last is colder hypolimnion, extending to the floor of the lake. This stratification is a natural occurrence in any static body of water. It occurs when the surface layer of water, warmed by the sun, becomes less dense than the water beneath it. The surface layer remains on top, and the lower layer, deprived of surface contact and insulated from the sun, continues to get colder. This increases the difference in density between the two layers and make it even more difficult for them to mix together. The significance of thermal stratification is that the lower layer of water, deprived of surface contact, slowly loses its dissolved oxygen and becomes less able to support aquatic life. In deep lakes and reservoirs, this has the effect of confining cold water species like trout to a narrow zone below the high temperature surface water but above the bottom layer of cold water lacking oxygen. Now, moving on to third news. It is regarding new guidelines for granting deemed university status. The central government on Friday released the revised guidelines for existing higher education institutions to get the deemed to be status by simplifying the eligibility criteria in order to establish more quality focused deemed universities. The UGC's Institutions Deemed to be Universities Regulation 2023, which will replace the 2019 guidelines. The new rules are built on the principle of a light but tight regulatory framework envisioned in the National Education Policy of 2020. So, what are the changes? Under the 2019 guidelines, the higher education institutions having existence for not less than 20 years were eligible for applying for the status. However, the revised guidelines have now replaced it with multidisciplinarity, NA grading, NIRF ranking, and NBA grading. Thus, higher education institutions that are less than 20 years old will now be eligible to apply for deemed university status, and private universities will have to create executive councils like central universities according to the revised guidelines. So, according to the revised guidelines, a cluster of institutions managed by more than one sponsoring body or a society can also apply for deemed to be university status. The new regulations also introduces the distinct institution category where an existing institution or an institution starting from the beginning with a focus on teaching and research in unique disciplines and or addressing the strategic needs of the country or engaged in preservation of Indian cultural heritage or preservation of the environment or dedicated to skill development or dedicated to sports or languages or any other discipline so determined by the expert committee of UGC will be exempted from the eligibility criteria. Now, moving on to the fourth news. International trade has a carbon problem. The European Union's key climate law, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, that is CBAM, has created apprehensions that it will cripple the export of India's carbon intensive products to the EU. while the international trade regime allows countries to adopt unilateral measures for safeguarding the environment. The environmental protection should not become a smokescreen for trade protectionism. The law should be consistent with WTO provisions. A cornerstone principle of WTO law is non discrimination. Thus, countries are required to accord equal treatment to like products irrespective of the country of origin, which is called most favored nation treatment, and to treat foreign made like products as they treat their domestic ones, which is called national treatment principle. So, while the CBAM's design is origin neutral in appearance, it may, in its application, discriminate between goods from different countries on account of an inadequate carbon pricing policy or due to onerous reporting requirements that importers would be subject to. A key consideration in all this may be whether the carbon intensive products to which the CBAM applies are like. While steel products may appear similar, for instance, the process by which electric arc furnaces produce steel is less carbon intensive than the steel produced in blast furnaces. So, being products that are not like, the rules on non discrimination would have little application on such a case. Accordingly, the debate on CBAM reignites a long standing debate in international trade law circles, that is, must processes and production methods be relevant for comparing products? Traditionally, the answer would be a clear no. And as experts have pointed out, the CBAM violates WTO law for discriminating between EU and foreign products covered by CBAM based on the embedded emissions. However, even if EU CBAM is discriminatory, there could be claim for justifying it under the General Exceptions Clause given in Article 20 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, that is GATT. So, under Article 20, measures taken by countries that otherwise violate GATT obligations are permitted. If first, they fall under one of the listed policy grounds, and secondly, if they satisfy the requirements of the introductory clause of Article 22, known as the CHAPEU. So, one of the listed policy grounds in Article 20 is conservation of exhaustible natural resources, and CBAM would fall under this category. However, it is doubtful whether it would satisfy the CHAPEU, which inter alia requires that countries do not apply measures in a manner that results in arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination between countries where the same conditions prevail. Accordingly, as experts point out, the CBAM only considers explicit carbon prices and it does not include implicit costs, that is, non price based costs borne by products originating in certain countries. So, it arbitrarily or unjustifiably discriminates between countries where the same environmental conditions exist. Now, moving on to the final news of the day. The Reserve Bank of India has released the draft master directions on cyber resilience and digital payment security controls for payment system operators. The directions have been issued to ensure that the authorized non bank payment system operators are resilient to traditional and emerging information systems and cybersecurity risks. The draft covers governance mechanisms for the management of cybersecurity risks, including information security risks and vulnerabilities. And it specifies baseline security measures for ensuring safe and secure digital payment transactions. Thank you for watching this video. You can download the PDF of these news from our website www.yuktmind.com under current affairs tab. You can also download the PDF from our Telegram channel, the link of which is given in description below. Thank you.